This is a total body resistance workout for your ovulatory phase. This is a quick 15-minute AMRAP workout. AMRAP simply stands for as many rounds as possible. So rather than using intervals or a designated number of reps, we are creating a circuit of 5 movement patterns, 10 reps each, and completing as many rounds as possible within our 15-minute time constraint. With that being said, you want to complete as many as you can with expert form. So I have offered a movement tutorial at the beginning of this workout before the warm-up so that you can kind of get a feel for the movement patterns. We are doing a single arm power snatch, which is a bit complex and requires that you focus on your form and mechanics to get that weight overhead. So you want to make sure that you're tuning into that and really kind of creating that imprint in your body before you start the workout. We have included a warm-up at the beginning of this workout, 3 to 5 minutes long, and then we have our 15-minute practice. I have added an optional core finisher at the end if you want just that extra little something at the end to connect to your core. And then there's a brief cool down period at the end. So this is a complete practice from start to finish. We are in the ovulatory phase, so you're entering that mid-cycle peak of hormones, of energy. We have elevated estrogen. We feel a surge in testosterone, kind of the highest testosterone levels throughout the cycle. And during this time, we hear that we're meant to feel radiant. We're meant to feel this outward pouring of energy, this grace, kind of a woman in her power. And sometimes we arrive at ovulation and we don't feel that way. And that happens to me more often than not, where I encounter the arousal energy in mind and body, and it feels overwhelming. It feels like I can't focus or I can't quite make my way through the static. There's kind of a frenetic energy that arrives. So there's a couple different approaches during ovulation when it comes to movement as medicine. One being the natural kind of grounding release that comes through slow mat-bound practice, maybe some gentle yoga or even active rest, some stretching that really just allows your energy to settle in kind of the natural release way. So I like to use the analogy of the Instant Pot. If you've ever cooked with one of those, there's the natural release where you let the pressure that's inside the pressure cooker just gradually dissipate. The other option, which is today's workout, is the quick release. That's where you open the release valve, you let all of that energy out in kind of one short, powerful burst. So today, our 15-minute AMRAP gives you that quick release. It's a way to let the pressure out, to give that frenetic energy a way to exit the system so that you can leave your workout feeling more balanced, feeling more at ease, and maybe a little closer to that magnetic radiance that everyone talks about during ovulation. So whether you're feeling that way or you are feeling a bit of that pressure and kind of overwhelm, today's practice will meet you where you are. This is a great one that you can kind of customize the intensity level for yourself. We are using a single dumbbell in today's practice. I used a 15-pound dumbbell for each of the exercises. And with kind of a total body practice, as usual, you'll find for some of the exercises, maybe you could go up a little bit. For others, it might be really challenging. So you want to kind of find that happy middle ground where you can create a steady challenge throughout and then pick up the pace when it's, maybe you're feeling like you want heavier weights, but you don't have them. You can just pick up the pace to kind of match that exertion level. So we have 10 reps of 5 exercises, and we're completing them in continuous rounds throughout. For reference, I got through about 3.5 rounds in the 15-minute AMRAP. So what I like to do is kind of gauge the time in my first round and then try to meet or beat that for each subsequent round. And that kind of lets me know, it gives me a challenge where I'm kind of competing against myself through the workout. So grab your weight. You will need some towel and some water. This is going to be a sweaty one. fun. And as you get sweaty, as you get tired and you need those breaks in between, take them whenever you need them. So with this not being an interval workout or a designated number of reps, you might find that you are blazing through and you're way far ahead of me, or maybe you're a little bit behind. Just work at your own pace. Really focus on that first round to get the container for the workout, and then just drop into presence, kind of find that flow state where your body is just moving in rhythm. And let's get started with today's workout. Before we jump into our workout today, I'm going to do a quick detailed run through the 5 movement patterns that make up this workout so that you can work out your mechanics, you get a few alignment cues, and you can kind of gauge the weight that you want to use for these different exercises. Each one will be using a single dumbbell. So I've got a 15-pound dumbbell that I'm using here. Our first movement pattern is a goblet squat with a front press. So slightly different grip than the goblet. I like to hold the weight with both hands on the bar. You can keep your shoulders nice and relaxed. Feet are pretty narrow for the goblet squat, so you can have the toes slightly turned out and the heel slightly in, but keep that narrow stance. It's going to focus more effort in the quads. Your shoulders stay relaxed. That weight is at your chest. We're going to simply lower down. So find your fullest range of motion. Your hips can go a bit below the knees if that doesn't create any discomfort in the flexion of the knee joint. And then you'll press up through the heels, and at the top we'll create a front press. So in the front press, you're squeezing the arms, the chest together to create that contraction throughout the chest and the backs of the arms. So together it looks like this. It's a goblet squat and a front press. Goblet squat and a front press. Our next movement pattern is a lateral lunge with a front raise. So for this one, you can hold the dumbbell horizontally. You'll take your feet nice and wide apart. We're alternating sides here. So you'll bend into one knee. Keep that knee kind of in alignment or behind the toes. You don't want to be going so far forward. You're more sitting back and down, hinging at the hips, keeping the chest elevated. And here we add the front raise. And then we switch sides. You come through center. You can keep it nice and fluid. Front raise. For extra challenge, you can stay low the whole time. Just go from side to side, gliding with that front raise. 10 reps there. Each side counts as 1. Our next move is the single arm power snatch. So this one is probably the most complex movement of this workout. So I will take some time kind of going through the mechanics. This one starts with the weight on the ground, and it is a power move. So we're using some serious power and exertion in the initial phase of this movement. So here, you grab the weight. It's a hip hinge, so you are coming down almost like a deadlift, where you're not leaning too far forward or squatting too far back, but really just creating that hip hinge to be able to reach the weight on the earth, on the floor. And then from here, you'll use that initial power phase, drive through the heels to get the weight up. So the first phase of the movement is like this. It's that pull. So it's almost like an upright row where you're driving the elbows straight up, bringing that weight up to chest height. The tricky part is the transition from this position to overhead. So if you have light enough weight, you can break up this movement into its component parts, which would be the upright row, the turn, and the overhead press. Or you have a little bit of a hop to get under the weight as you're using that power and the momentum on the way up. So for the power, chest is elevated. You drop it up and get under the weight. So you have to bend the knees to get under it and then drive the weight overhead. With this move, I recommend erring on the side of too light in your weight, because that'll let you kind of perfect your mechanics before really powering into some heavier weight. So 15 pounds is just enough for me. Could probably go heavier, but you want something that if you were to break it up into its component parts, that you can get that weight overhead, no problem. Eventually, as you progress and you log more hours with this movement pattern, you can slowly go up in weight and use the drive from the legs and that quickness in getting under the weight for that snatch. We're switching sides here in a squat position and alternating for 10 reps. So coming down and up. Again, if the snatch just feels maybe a bit too complicated, you can always move into that upright row and overhead press. Your reps might just be a little bit slower. You'll have to take more time with that interval. Few things to avoid with the snatch. You don't want to be bending over in the upper back. So really focus on that hip hinge and kind of sitting low in the hips so that your chest can stay elevated. The other thing you want to avoid is taking the weight out and over. So that'll put a lot of strain on the low back. So keep the weight nice and close to your body as it comes up, as opposed to going out and up. You want it nice in that nice straight line axis all the way up and over. So a lot of kind of little mechanics for that one that will pay off and allow you to really use this power movement to your advantage. Our next movement pattern is the side plank press. So we'll start in your plank position, hips are nice and low, chest is stretching forward. You'll pick up the weights, roll onto the knife edges of both feet, and then you draw the weight up and press it overhead. Come through center, switch sides, weight goes up and overhead. So this one kind of slowing it down a little bit into the component parts rather than having one fluid motion. And again, keeping the weight close to your body. Resist the urge to kind of swing it or let the weight come out and around. If you want to do this with knees down, if the plank position creates excess strain in your back, you can always come into the knees and you'll just have a little bit of extra setup because you're going to have to move that top leg over and then lift to the side. In this scenario, you can always do 5 reps on one side and 5 on the other, since there is a little bit of extra transition time there. If you want to make the most of your interval, you can always start here, complete your 5 reps, and then switch sides, complete your 5 reps again. So options there for creating the most power and integration that you can in the low back and the low belly. Our final movement is a forward lunge with an overhead press and a rotation. So here, you have the weight at your chest, horizontal, and we're doing a forward lunge. So you'll step forward, 90-degree bends in both knees, and then as you come forward, I want you to take the weight overhead. So it comes into an overhead press. Then you're going to sweep the weight down to your front hip and drive it back up. Step together, the weight comes down. So it's that front lunge overhead press, and then you add the rotation here. We're alternating sides for 10 reps. Those are the 5 movement patterns of the core portion of our workout, the 15-minute AMRAP. We do as many rounds as possible of 10 reps of each exercise, and you can log your rounds. So this is a great metric workout, so you can log how many rounds you did, how much weight you used, and then maybe in 3 cycles from now, when you've been working on your strength training, you can come back to it in the same phase, your follicular ovulatory phase, and see how it feels. It's also a great one if you want to practice it in the first week of your cycle. So that initial follicular phase, see how it feels, and then practice again a week later as you approach ovulation so that you can kind of really see your personal hormonal blueprint and how it affects your strength, your power, and your conditioning. At the end of this workout, you do have an optional core finisher. It's just 5 minutes. We are using the single dumbbell for this one. The first movement being a side forearm plank. You'll have the weight on your hip, and we're simply pressing up and down. So lifting up and lowering down. Alignment cues here. You want to keep the shoulders and the hips in that horizontal plane, so you have that solid axis of the spine all the way down. Our next movement in the core finisher is a pullover with a leg lower. So here, weight and legs start in an upright position. And then as you pull the weight overhead, you lower one leg and then lift back up. Here with the pullover, make sure that your shoulders are staying grounded and that the belly is integrated. So think low ribs and hip points. Knit them together. Feel that connection of the low spine to the mat, but without kind of flattening it. You want to have your natural lumbar curve here. We'll follow that with a weighted sit-up and a press. So here we come down and take the weight straight out from your chest. We'll add a skull crusher here. So the weight comes toward your forehead and then lift it up. The weight comes overhead. So if you can keep the weight in that straight line, that's great. If you need to add kind of an intermediate bend and break the movement into its two parts, that's fine too. But we're adding the skull crusher here. This one is timed, so just 50 seconds of work, 10 seconds quick transitions in between. Our last movement for the core finisher is a Russian twist. So you can have the heels down if that's most supportive in your back. The key here is you want to keep your heart and your chest elevated. So as soon as you start to feel rounding, you want to pause, reset so that you're on the front, the tips of your sitting bones, and the heart is elevated. And you're simply rotating side to side. Added challenge, shins come up to parallel with the floor, side to side. But again, as soon as you start to feel any rounding or you're compromising your form, either bring the heels down or pause and jump back in. So those are our movements for today, and let's go ahead and get started with this workout. We'll get our bodies warmed up before we jump into this 15-minute AMRAP. We'll start with simple air squats here. So you'll take your feet a little bit wider than hips width, toes out, heels in, and simply move down and up. Feel a bit of contraction, a bit of hugging to the center in the legs on the way up. Keep your shoulders relaxed. Use this opportunity to connect with your breath. So inhale and exhale. In through the nose, out through the mouth if needed to release heat and excess energy there. Create that connection, that integration in the belly by drawing the low hip points and low ribs together. And then re-extend through the spine so you have this powerful alignment in the body from the beginning. Step your feet nice and wide here. We're moving into a lateral lunge with a press in the arms. So lunge to the side, press the arms out, and press. So here, just warming the chest a bit. Take the elbows back and wide and move side to side. Don't worry too much about the rhythm here. Just find what feels good in your body. And then you can cross the arms forward and back, just warming the shoulders, warming the legs. In 3, 2, 1. Step the feet close together once again. A little bit wider than hips width. Come into a deep squat and fold. So reach the arms forward and fold. Inhale, reach forward, squat deep, and fold. You can keep a bend in the knees here in the beginning. No need to force the legs straight. We're just creating some awareness, some awakening in the backs of the legs. After this movement, we're transitioning to our side plank. So come into your plank position here, hips nice and low. And we'll simply transition from one side to the other. So opening left arm and then rolling over the toes to the right side. So just a few explorations here. We're kind of getting a body weight preview of the movements that will make up our workout. Last few reps here. One more time each side. And slowly walk your feet to your hands. We'll turn now to face the long edge of your mat. We're moving into a forward lunge, with rotation. So you're stepping forward and rotate over that front knee. Forward and rotate. As best as you can, keep the chest elevated, spine is upright. So this is sort of previewing one of our movements where we'll really work into the abdominal wall to create rotation. Front lunge here, a bit, for me anyway, more challenging than a reverse lunge. Requires a bit more power to get back to your starting position. Find that alignment in the legs, 90-degree bends in both sides. And then we'll turn now and find our reverse lunge so that your arms come overhead. And as you lunge back, take the elbows out wide, lat pull down. So squeezing the elbows together behind you, taking care not to flare the low ribs. And breathing all the way through. This is our last movement of this warm-up. 3, 2, and 1. Reach the arms up. We'll enjoy one big breath together. Inhale, circle the arms out and up. And as you exhale, sigh it out. That is our very quick warm-up for today. We're trying to keep it short, and let's get started with our workout. We are ready to start our 15-minute AMRAP workout. That means as many rounds of this circuit as possible in 15 minutes. So that means you take rest when you need it, but really try to complete as many rounds as possible during this interval. We'll go in about 12 seconds here. Our first exercise is the goblet squat with front press. So you can grab your weights here, get your feet in a kind of that narrow stance, and let's begin. So we squat low, come up and press, low, come up and press. So you can break these movements into their component parts or make it more of a fluid movement pattern. You can also, if you like to challenge yourself, take the front press down low and come up, down low and come up. So we're here for 10 reps, 9, and 10, coming into our lateral lunge with front raise next. So the feet are nice and wide, toes are pointing forward, outer edges of the feet are parallel. We lunge down. That's 1. You can stay low or come up to transition. That's 2. So you might come up and back down. That's 3. Or you stay low and glide across. That's 4. Breathe here. That's 5. You've got a single weight, so it's very manageable, but it will build in volume as we go. That's 8. 2 more. 9. And 10. Our next movement is the single arm snatch. Be very mindful of your mechanics here. You can also break it down into the upright row and overhead press. We're alternating sides for 10 reps. Here we go. That's 1. Stay powerful here. Keep the belly strong as you lift that weight straight up. 4. 5. So we're only here today for 15 minutes. So what can you bring to your practice? How can you create some heat? That's 8. 9, find that exhale on the exertion. And 10, coming down into our plank position for side plank press. So find your stable base, grab that weight, come to one side, lift it up and press. Transition, roll to the other side, lift up and press. That's 2. So the hips stay in that single plane. Try not to let them pop up. That's 3. Up and over. That's 4. This is an opportunity to kind of slow it down. That's 5. Make sure that you have both feet firmly planted. That's 6. So you're not putting any strain or gripping in the low back. That's 7. 8. 2 more. 9. And 10. Slowly coming back through plank, stepping your feet to hands and rising nice and slow. So avoiding kind of that really fast movement from plank to standing. You want to avoid any dizziness. So here, coming into our front lunge with the overhead press and rotation. So you're at the back of your mat, weight is horizontal. Let's go, 10 reps. Press it overhead, take it down by your side, and back up. Try not to, that's 2. Try not to twist the legs as you rotate that dumbbell. So you keep that stability in the stance, and that's where the work comes in. That's where the challenge comes in for the core. That's 4. And keep the knees very deeply bent so you can stay nice and low in that lunge. 6. So equal parts, arms, legs, and belly here. Tap into that strength. This is 8. And again, this one becomes more challenging when you slow it down, but really cultivates that core strength that we're looking for. So you can make this very fast, but we want to stay in the work the whole time. So that's where the benefit comes in slowing it down. That was our first round. We've got 10 more minutes. Let's see if we can complete the next 2 rounds in as good or as fast or better pace. So that means we've got 2 more full rounds. Here we go, 10 reps. Squat down, front press. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Find your quickness. Now that you know what's coming, can you add some speed? 8, 9, and 10. Swap to your lateral lunge with a front raise. So weights are nice and low. Take a big breath. 10 reps. Here we go. 1. Slide it over. 2. Keep your belly strong. Chest elevated. 3. 4. Keep your gaze out in front of you. Try to avoid what happens to me when you look down, which is your energy gets a bit zapped. So can you keep the gaze elevated and let that inform the rest of your body? So your heart, your chest stay elevated, and that's 10. Moving now into our single arm snatch. So get your dumbbell set up. This one again, pulling that weight up and taking it overhead. Here we go, 10 reps. That's 1. Swap it out. 2. 3. 4. Find a little pulse in the legs on the way down. 5. We got this. So you have your time for the first round. Try to meet or beat that for the next 2 rounds. Last one here. That's 10. Come into your side plank press. So hips nice and low, shoulders over wrists. Let's get it. Pull it up and over. Smooth transitions, like they say in the Navy SEALs. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So don't rush so much that you lose that smooth movement, the smooth transition. That's 5. 6, 7, 8. Last 2 here. 9 and 10. Transition nice and slow. So we're halfway there. We've got 7.5 minutes left. Get your weight ready. Got that forward lunge with overhead press and rotation. Let's go. That's 1. Rotate and up. That's 2. Rotate and up. This is 3. And up. 4. So we know we have at least 1 more round in us. Can you aim for 1 and some change? 7. 8. Imagine hugging the inner thighs to the midline to support that deep rotation. 9. And 10. Coming up, right back in to our goblet squats. Here we go, 10 reps. Squat down, front press. 2, front press. 3, press. We got this. We're coming in the home stretch. We're more than halfway there. Get your balance. 7, 8, 9, breathing, and 10. Switch the position, the grip of that weight, coming into our lateral lunge front raise. Here we go. 1, glide it over or come up and back down. 2, notice if your belly gets softened as you get tired. Can you knit the low ribs and the hip points together? 5, 6, staying nice and low. 7, really uses the belly to get that weight up. I feel it in the depths of my core here. 10. Coming to that single arm snatch now. Getting a breath to reset, and then jump right in when you're ready. 1, switch it. 2, find that smooth transition. Your mind and your body already know where the weight is and where it's going. It's that flow state, that rhythm that we can enter, where we stop thinking about each little piece so much and we're just present with it. That's 8, 9, feel the power through the heels, and 10. Come into your side plank press. Here we go. 1, rotate. 2, keep the body in that nice horizontal plane here. 3, slow and controlled. 4, feel the cumulative heat building. 6, let there be no rush as you lower the weights down. Keep the muscles under tension. 2 more. And last one. So take care as you step up. Slowly rise to stand. We've got 3.5 minutes left. So we can definitely get through this round and maybe a lot of the next round. So here we go. Stepping forward and rotate. That's 1. That's 2. Find your power, dig deep here. It's just 3 more minutes of work. These short bursts, so good for releasing energy from the body so that you can walk off your mat feeling a little bit more ease, maybe a little bit more balance. You can meet the arousal energy during ovulation with some pretty intense exertion to create some grounding, to give that energy a place to go. Last one here. Come up, move straight into your goblet squat with front press. Here we go. And press, that's 1. Press, 2, 3. We're in round 4 now. If you're keeping track, so that you can take note in your journal or your notes app on your phone, so that you can remember this moment in time and track your progress. 9 and 10. Lateral lunge with the front raise. Let's get it. So as we get close now to the end of the 15-minute AMRAP, I want you to be ready to come down into your side plank for the weighted side plank press. 4, 5. That is if you're staying for the core finisher. You can always move straight into the cool down if that's more supportive, or if you are short on time. Last 2 here. And 10. Single arm snatch. We've got 1 minute left. Give it everything you got. Pull it up and over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 45 seconds. Stay with it. 6, 7, 8. Challenge yourself. Last 2 reps here. Chances are you're either faster than me, or maybe you're taking it a bit slow. Either way, finish strong. 20 seconds. 1. Without losing the mechanics. Can you pick up the pace? 3. 10 more seconds. 4, 5, and 6. Coming out of whichever interval you are in, nice and slow. We've got 30 seconds of rest here, and then we'll jump right into the core finisher. So if you're skipping this part, you can move ahead to the cool down. Otherwise, come into that side forearm plank. We'll go in 10 seconds here. So you have your single weight on your hips. Draw the belly in. We'll go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's begin. We're here for 50 seconds. Lift it up, lower down. Shoulders are stacked, hips are stacked. If this becomes too much in the shoulder or the low back, you can ditch the weights altogether. Just leave it off to the side. Otherwise, we're here for the full 50-second interval, working the obliques. Finding that strength. You can always rest at the bottom if you need it, like me. And then come right back in strong. So no use pushing through when you're tired if your form is compromised. Better to take that half a second of rest, reset, and start again. Last 3, 2, 1. Switch sides now. Forearm plank on the other side. It's a quick 10 seconds, and let's begin. Lift it up and lower down. So your shoulder directly over the elbow, hips are stacked, gaze is out in front of you. Try to avoid shrugging the shoulders or creating any gripping in the hands. So you might just create an open palm to hold that weight in place. Reset if you need to, and come back in. You might have that sweat pooling now. Your body magically cooling itself through that glow, especially during the first half of the cycle, where that process happens more efficiently. And rest. Coming into our pullover with an alternating leg lower. So weight is up, legs are up, and we simply lower one leg and the arms together. Here we go. Lower it down, draw it up. So think about flattening the belly by knitting low ribs and hip points together, like you're trying to shorten that gap. And up. You might find it easier now to activate the core after that practice, after the resistance, because it's already fired up. So use this now to create that mind-muscle connection, that intuitive connection to the breath and the belly. Last 3, 2, and 1. Coming into our weighted sit-up next. So we can start in this position with the weight directly overhead. Find your skull crusher so the bar comes straight to your forehead. Press it up and sit up. Come back down, skull crusher, and sit up. So as best as you can, keep your feet planted on the ground and really try to become aware of each part of your spine as you lift and lower. So bone by bone, come down so that you can keep that weight overhead. Press it up and lift. Feet stay grounded. Lower down, bone by bone. You can also take, if it's too much to have the weight overhead during the sit-up phase, you can bring it to your chest and lift it up. So you can take out a bit of that challenge with keeping the weight overhead as we go through. Skull crusher here. Last 3, 2, 1. Moving into our Russian twist. Last exercise here. Going in 3, 2, and 1. Rotate. So you can lift the heels or keep them grounded. Last 50 seconds here. So chest stays elevated. Legs are hugging together. Create that awareness to the midline. So squeeze inner ankles, inner knees, inner thighs. Together. The legs are a unit. Keep the low belly nice and flat, so avoid the coning or puffing of the rectus abdominis. Stay with it. Rotate. Last 5 seconds here. And rest. Set your weight down, off to the side. We'll slowly transition up to standing. So that core finisher, if you stuck with it through the end, might bring your heart rate down a bit. So we will transition right into our cooling practice now. I hope you can stay with us for the next 5 to 7 minutes just to bring your body back down to the baseline before we send you on your way. So we are preparing for our cool down now. Get your legs into a squat position. Simple squat and rotate here. So we're coming down nice and low and then rotating. Make sure you pivot on the back toes here. And just allowing some space for the body and mind to come from that highly activated place back down to neutral. A few more reps here. So we're kind of mirroring our warm-up in this cool down. So our next movement now is that deep squat, reach forward and fold. But this time we're going to slow it down since we're focusing more on kind of that smooth transition back to our baseline, squatting and folding. You might find the legs can work a little bit more towards straight here. Last 2 reps like this. And last one. So we'll turn now, coming into a downward dog shape. So this need not be kind of your fullest expression. Don't sweat it if your heels are lifted, your knees are bent. Really just creating a bit of length in the spine. And then as you're ready with an inhale, touch your knees down. Soften the belly, gaze up, inflate the lungs, shine your sitting bones. Reverse that on the exhale, downward dog. Pause for a breath in downward dog. On your next inhale, lower your knees. Use the full breath to soften the belly, lift the gaze, shine the sitting bones back. As you exhale, downward dog. One breath, one movement. Inhale, cow. Exhale, downward dog. Last one like this. Inhale. Rather than downward dog, find cat pose around the spine. Press through the hands and knees. Create space in the back of the heart. Keep the hips over the knees here. Untuck the toes. Walk your hands out into puppy stretch or puppy pose. You can rest your forehead down.
And if it feels okay, rest your elbows on the mat. Bring your hands to your shoulder blades. And then as you fix the elbows as an anchor point, start to sink the hips back, create some length and stretch on the back of the arms. And then slowly coming out as you're ready, rolling forward into Sphinx pose. So forearms on the mat, elbows under shoulders. And we simply press down and drag back, really anchor your hip points into the earth and create some activation in the legs, some awareness in the legs. Really stretch the toes backward, press the tops of the thighs down. Circle your head and neck, one direction, and then the other. Turn your left forearm so that it's parallel to the short side of your mat. Bend your right knee, reach for the top of your right foot. If you can, square the shoulders to the front of your mat. Press your foot into hands, hand into foot. So you should feel this both as a quadricep stretch and a bit of a back bend, maybe a chest opener. And then switching sides, bending left knee. Best as you can, keeping the inner knees, inner thighs magnetizing toward each other. Press your foot into hand, hand into foot. Really allow the inner shoulder, inner arm to receive that stretch. And slowly release both. Take your hands under shoulders, keep your knees planted. Simply press up and transition back to a child's pose. Knees wide, big toes touch. You can pillow your hands if that feels good. And just take a moment to observe here. Notice your heart rate. Notice your temperature. If you feel like you are more or less at your baseline, you know your body has cooled completely. You can close your practice now. Otherwise, I encourage you, this was a very, very short cool down. So if you have the time, if you have the space, continue moving a bit until you feel that settling energy, that sort of dropping back in to your baseline. But in an effort to keep this practice short and sweet, we will slowly roll back up to stand. So nice and gentle here as you rise bone by bone. The shoulders relax. Let's take our deep breath together. Inhale. And exhale, sigh. I hope you enjoyed that workout as much as I did. Definitely feeling it. I love these short bursts of energy just to get the blood flowing and to get kind of the balance that you're looking for at mid-cycle in this kind of this peak point in the menstrual rhythm. So thank you for being here with me and for letting your body be moved.